Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is the Two-Way Platform's morning meeting, also known as the morning meeting. Thank you for being part of it. We're glad to have you here, whether you're watching on Two-Way or somewhere else, like on X or YouTube. If you're there, don't put smack in the chat. Please extend to all who come here peace, love, and understanding. The presumption of grace to all, particularly at this time when there are two Americas, as John Edwards once said. One America sees Donald Trump's attempt to impose martial law on the United States for purposes known and unknown, but all nefarious, dark, and evil. And the other see an attempt to enforce a campaign promise through the use of the kind of security for our law enforcement officers that they don't see as being provided by blue state governors and blue city mayors. We'll talk all about that today. It'll be one of the big topics we discuss. But also, if you're in Washington, D.C. tonight and you're a certain elite, you face an extraordinary choice. Go to the Kennedy Center to see Les Mis with the president, the vice president, or the congressional baseball game. We'll talk about that as well. And we'll do all of that and more, much, much more, with our two stalwart hosts of this program, Dan Turrentine, a Democrat who lives here in Gotham City, and Sean Spicer, who normally lives in the Washington, D.C. area, but currently is with the people of America.
Have any of you gone to the congressional baseball game? I've been to it.
Oh, multiple times.
Yeah. Mark?
I did once.
Okay.
Long time ago when you were in junior high.
Changed.
It's become
now
too,
that it's in that
too
stadium.
professional. It's too professional.
It's like spring training. It used to be fun.
Yeah.
But the Les Mis thing, that's going to be the ticket tonight.
Yeah. I'm waiting to decide. I'll tell everybody on Two-Way tonight. I'll be the big reveal about which, if either, I will attend. If you're here on the Two-Way platform, you want to get in the conversation, we'd love for you to raise your hand, particularly if you've never asked a question before. Today is your day to be part of the conversation. We call them conversations like no other, and that's in part because of your participation. So please raise your hand if you want to be in on the conversation. No smack in any chat. Let me run through the day book, and then Sean, Dan, and I will talk about the day and then take your questions. President has an intel briefing at 11, lunch with the vice president at 12:30. Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, will brief at 1 p.m. And you can expect a lot of Gavin Newsom bashing. Right now, just quick survey question for the group. Dan, will she refer to the governor of California by his actual last name or by the president's Newsom? Which would you predict?
The latter.
The latter, Newsom. Sean?
Both.
Okay.
Oh, you think he actually gives him he does one reference of his real name?
So she will say,
she.
Governor
Newsom,
blah, blah, blah. And as the president said, Governor Newsom. So she will quote the president's use of that, but she herself.
I agree. I thought you were talking about Trump. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So Dan, do you think she'll call it? Do you agree with Sean or have a different?
Yeah. She'll call him by his name, but she'll get it in there.
Yeah. All right. Then the president at 4 does an ambassador credentialing ceremony. Sean, would that be for ambassadors to the U.S. or from the U.S.?
To the U.S. So when a country sends an ambassador, they actually have to present their credentials, whether it's to the United States or our ambassadors going to them. And so you present your credentials to the head of state, and then they officially welcome you into the country. So he does it down in the diplomatic room here for the United States. It's a very standard ceremony.
It's like the king and I. It's very formal.
Very, very much.
And then, as we said, the president and the vice president and the first and second ladies are going to the Kennedy Center to see Les Mis, and I can't wait to see what kind of shoes Rick Grinnell wears for this one.
I will tell you, there's going to be a little red carpet action going through. I think you're going to expect to see a lot of the MAGA faithful played through, but they've got a whole. They're going to really do their best to glam this up.
Yeah, and any prospect that there'll be people in the audience who would be inclined to boo the president, or that?
I can't. I mean, I can't say that someone could. Obviously, anyone could have bought a ticket, but I do know that there's going to be a lot of. It would get drowned out. Is probably the better way to put that.
Yeah. Chance of USA might be heard enough.
But as far as I can recall, at least
or Vive la France. Yeah,
I don't recall him ever going to the Kennedy Center. I know he's been there once for a board meeting, but he never went for anything.
Yeah.
I thought he went in the first term for something.
No, not even for the honors, which is of course.
I thought he
Well,
did.
that was the first
Yeah.
decision, but then he never
Yeah.
went for a performance either.
Yeah. All right. So the vice president's with the president for those two events today, lunch and then Les Mis. Cabinet, Scott Bessent, twice on the Hill today, 10 a.m. before Ways and Means, 4 p.m. Senate Appropriations. They'll ask him if he'll admit that he's about to be named the Fed chair. He will not bite on that. But they'll have plenty of questions for him. And Lee Zeldin at 2 o'clock.
Can I just little side note on that? I mean, Bessent, I just think sometimes, we talk about what people have done as sacrifice to be in the government. These guys were doing serious 10 to 12-hour days with the Chinese. Never mind, whenever you meet with a group, there's a pre-meeting and a post-meeting, a wrap to break down what happened, to write the diplomatic memo, all that kind of stuff, to codify all the stuff that was occurred, make sure everyone agrees, to back brief NSC folks and make sure the whole of government understands what happened. So like these are truly 14, 16-hour days. The guy got on a plane, is landing, doing 2 briefings. And I know Howard Lutnick has, I would just say this, pay attention to the end of the week. There's some more, like, these guys are just crushing it when it comes to between Lutnick, Greer, and Bessent. They're killing it. And Bessent's getting some attention today because he's going straight to the Hill. But I think Howard may have some additional information at the end of the week on the trade issue as well. But I just, no matter what you think of Trump and the administration, you can't say these guys aren't hustling for the American people.
Yes, and I'm told 2 hours after the meeting, they were still hungry again. Or they were hungry again. Sorry. 2 hours after the meeting, they were hungry again. Thank you for that. Lee Zeldin makes an announcement at 2 about rolling back some Biden-era pollution prevention regulations. House and Senate are both in. Conference meetings at this hour, conference and caucus meetings. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, 10 a.m. press conference to talk about the reconciliation bill. Schumer at 11:15. So an hour and 15 minutes after that press conference is holding another press conference to talk about clean energy. Dick Durbin, retiring senator from Illinois, the number 2 Democrat in the Senate, at noon, a press conference on the anniversary of DACA. And 7:05 tonight, congressional baseball game at Nats Park. There you have it. All right, let's talk about this first. 8:30, we got the Consumer Price Index and CPI year over year. And here's how CNBC characterized it. U.S. inflation rises just 0.1 in May from prior month, less than expected. We've talked, gentlemen, before about the fundamentals of the economy. And obviously, the tariffs are on again, off again, and could be causing inflation. But Sean, what does this new data tell you, or how does the new data inform your view of the economy generally and specifically Trump inflation?
Well, I think, again, it's one data point, but if you look at the overall thing, if this is a good report, so let's just start with that. It's a great report. It blew expectations away. I'm scrolling through Playbook this morning. It's just the amount of, this is going to be the report that shows his disastrous policies are having an effect. Every month they set up this construct that this is going to be the report that's going to show how bad his policies, and every time they're wrong. So it's not just one report. I think between the jobs report, this report, some of the other small business indices that we've seen, the stock market, the strength of the economy is strong. President Trump's policies are working.
Dan.
Yeah, it's a great report. I mean, thank God inflation is staying low. I think some of the strength is that Trump has changed direction here on some of this, but kudos, he recognized the danger zone that he was entering.
But Dan, this looks back a month. So right. It doesn't even take, last night, a hugely favorable court ruling on this. This is 30 days ago. So This isn't like, oh, he changed course a week ago.
No, he changed course 2 months ago.
Right. But all of this stuff continues every time that they keep talking, all the experts and the folks in the media, about how this is going to be the month that we see how disastrous Trump's policies are. They're wrong. They've been wrong for 8 years.
Yeah, no, look, it is good news. I believe that part of the reason it's good news is he did the pause with Europe. He did the pause with China. Like, he dialed stuff down from the initial Liberation Day blitz because, as he said, he got the yips. That was his description. So I think we'll see. Well, we'll just have to see what happens.
But at the end of the day, look, we gotta deal with the UK, which is fine. It's not the biggest trading partner we have by far. They just announced this framework last night in China. I think by Friday, Saturday, you may see some more.
Yeah.
Ahead of the G7.
Get Fox ready, please. Go ahead, Sean.
I'm just saying, like, the idea is.
No, I get what your point is.
The tactic, the style might not be traditional, but it's getting results.
All right, we're going to talk about immigration now, but I want to jump to Fox. Two-way alum Tricia McLaughlin, spokesperson at Homeland Security, is speaking. Let's listen.
Calling in more law enforcement, more military resources on the ground, but I do want to say, Bill.
Say what? Say
I'm
it.
sure it was a good point.
Say it.
Yeah.
Americans can be so proud of our law enforcement, our ICE operators.
All right. Little technical issue there.
Later on this morning, announcing those attempted murder charges.
All right, we'll dump out of that. Dump out of that. Thank you. We'll continue to monitor and see what goes on with the DHS. Anyway, let me set up the conversation. You've got now a curfew in Los Angeles, and our friend Eric Erickson has a great Substack today. I recommend to you, focusing on CNN, although he could focus on a lot of places, and pointing out that it seems to be an inconsistency. They're saying, we don't need any help. We've got this all under control. And yet they've got a curfew. Here's what Eric Erickson writes this morning about the media coverage of what's going on.
When have you seen...
Sorry, kill that. There you go. Does Mark Thompson, the CEO and editor-in-chief of CNN, watch his own network? If he did, and I'm beginning to believe he does not, I hope he can tell me why the mayor of Los Angeles would be announcing a curfew.
As the governor said, and
sorry, kill that. Go back. Sorry. Back. Why be announcing a curfew in part of Los Angeles? I asked because Brian Stelter has been on CNN and social media insisting everything is fine. Sorry, gotta go back. Everything is fine in Los Angeles. The city barely realizes, oh my goodness, anything is happening, and it's just a city block or so that is problematic. Likewise, on CNN, various voices have insisted that Donald Trump sending the National Guard to Los Angeles provoked the problems. But here's Los Angeles chief of police telling people the crowd was already out of hand. The National Guard was not the provocation. The police chief also said the protesters are attacking the police and that the police are overwhelmed. Who am I to believe? On most networks, I am assured the riots are no big deal and peaceful, but the mayor of Los Angeles has declared a curfew in part of downtown LA, and the chief of police says the police are overwhelmed. Okay, so why does the president have the National Guard and the Marines out there? Does he have it because he wants to impose martial law in the United States? Well, that's what some on the left say. But there's at least two reasons why he might be doing it. One is because our law enforcement officers who are trying to conduct deportations of people here illegally, some violent criminals allegedly, some not, are being attacked. And no one in the United States could possibly want law enforcement officers to face attacks while they're trying to do their job. No one could want that. And the second reason is there is violence and property destruction going on in a major American city, and the president feels an obligation to step in because the state and local officials either can't do it or won't do it. Okay, so there's that. Then here is Tom Cotton, op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, 111. Tom Cotton famously wrote a similar piece for the New York Times that led to a rebellion at the New York Times and the firing of their very distinguished editorial page editor because he proposed something supported by 70% of the American people at the time, which is if local officials can't restore order and can't protect law enforcement officials from doing their jobs, the American military is a lawful and precedented way to try to deal with it. I recommend the Tom Cotton piece to you. Also, I recommend, if you're a Democrat in particular, you read David Ignatius in the Washington Post. I will read some of it to you. David Ignatius is saying the truth, which is this latest incident is part of a piece of a Democratic administration that had an immigration policy that was extremely unpopular and unsuccessful. This is David Ignatius. Democrats have gotten the border issue so wrong for so long that it amounts to political malpractice. The latest chapter in which violent protesters could be helping President Trump create a military confrontation he's almost begging for as a distraction from his other problems may prove the most dangerous yet. When I see activists carrying Mexican flags as they challenge ICE raids in Los Angeles this week, I think of two possibilities. These, quote, protesters are deliberately working to create visuals that will help Trump, or they are well-meaning but unwise dissenters who are inadvertently accomplishing the same goal. Okay. Lastly, David Ignatius, Democrats' mistake over more than a decade has been to behave as though border enforcement doesn't matter. Pressured by immigrant rights activists, party leaders too often acted as if maintaining a well-controlled border was somehow morally wrong. Again and again, the short-term political interest of Democratic leaders in responding to a strong faction within the party won out over having a policy that could appeal to the country as a whole. Sean, Dan, and I all agree with that. I wonder what Chuck Schumer would say, or Hakeem Jeffries. Lastly, gentlemen, of course, Gavin Newsom gave a big speech last night with some technical difficulties, but with a strong message opposing Donald Trump. So I want to talk in general about the Democratic Party and this issue, but I want to start with this. Dan, in the most superficial, scorecardy, theater criticism kind of way, who is winning the Donald Trump versus Gavin Newsom clash?
Donald Trump is winning it.
Why?
Well, look, there's two parts to this, and I think Newsom is actually winning in some regard. Trump is winning for all the reasons that you just went through, right? ICE was being attacked. Donald Trump was elected to deal with immigration, and as we talked about earlier this week, this started because ICE agents were gathering to presumably do a deportation raid or something, and a local congressman or assemblyman saw it, went on Instagram. People started coming out in the streets, right? That is the TikTok of how this started. But ICE has the right to do this. People have violated the law. I think that where the Democratic Party, like the challenge is, and it was in the New York Times article that I don't think we alluded to, is this kind of pragmatic versus extreme. Because we have not wanted to admit that there is a problem, whether it was at the southern border or that there were bad hombres here, or that something has to be done, we have no solution. So our end of the spectrum is like off the chart. Trump, therefore, whereas I think some of this is extreme, looks like the more reasonable person because he is dealing with an issue that 80%, 90% of the country, maybe even 100, thinks there is a problem. So I think that, in that regard, Trump looks like he is strong. Trump, to your point, Mark, things were out of control on Sunday night. Were they out of control every day? We can debate that. But Sunday night was a huge problem.
But it's out of control enough that the mayor said there needs to be a curfew.
Absolutely. Well, look, hold on. Let me get to that. The chief of police on Sunday said,
this is only an hour show, right?
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm just kidding. You go. You keep going.
I think the curfew is actually more to try to get ahead of this because they don't want that. So it's not.
But Dan, I mean, there's no curfew where I live. Like, they get ahead of what? Get ahead of the fact that they don't think they have the situation under control.
Mark, I disagree about that a little bit. I do. Look,
Dan,
this is a game of optics.
A curfew.
You can't have the Mexican flag
This
burning.
is America. Dan, this is America.
Mark, we have
America.
If I want to go, if I want to go,
if I live in LA and I want to go to a rave because the mayor and the police can't keep order, I can't go to a rave because there's a curfew.
Mark,
you're acting like a curfew
in New York when we fear stuff may happen.
Yeah, when we
fear it may happen. Not that it's happened.
Well, we have them. First of all, I don't know. Do we have frequent curfews in New York?
Not frequent, but this isn't a frequent situation.
But Dan, it doesn't. As Eric Erickson pointed out, and then Sean's going to come in and tell me who's winning, Trump versus Newsom. And he's going to shock us all by saying Newsom in a rout. When CNN's Brian Stelter and the mayor herself says all good here, this is not serious stuff. A curfew is not some mild, some sort of casual thing. You do a curfew when you think you have a big problem.
Mark, they have a problem. There has been violence. I totally agree with that. And the problem and the party's denial of that is insane.
Okay, Sean, who's winning? First, start with.
I just want Dan to keep going. I'm yielding all my time.
Start with the tight question.
Okay, the tight question.
But I'm gonna phrase it this way. What's going well for Newsom and Newsom versus Trump?
Actually, great angle because that's why
you didn't give me that.
No, here, I'll do it for you. Look, I think Trump is crushing this. As I said yesterday, the policy and the politics are on his side. Where Newsom is winning is that he is staking himself out as the crazy progressive in the Democratic primary. I think right now he has just catapulted himself into the front of the Democratic. Now, the problem is that you are catapulting yourself into becoming the nominee that can't win a general election. So this is I'm actually so pumped about this dynamic. And Sebastian, I feel like I need you to change that backdrop because I feel like I'm staring at Howard Lutnick's face. There you go. But the bottom line is, look, Newsom has done a great job positioning himself as the front runner for the Democratic Party, but I don't know how he would ever dig himself out of this hole because anybody with a brain and common sense is saying this is nuts, right? So first of all, I tweeted extensively about the curfew last night. That's insane. You either have a curfew because you're 8 or because there's a problem. Those are the two scenarios that people have curfews in this life. Chuck Schumer, by the way, I cannot believe I tweeted this last night. I said Chuck Schumer's the voice of reason right now in the Democratic Party. He wrote, "The violent protest should never have happened, full stop." This is the guy that's actually the voice of reason. How nuts is that? But then, look, to your other media point, I'll pull this one up as well. Stelter Brian there from wrote, "Offline in real world Los Angeles, most Angelinos are having a perfectly normal day." To which I quote tweeted in response, "Well done, comrade. Next time, please try to work in peaceful protest in your response." This is crazy. The idea that the media is watching their own trucks, their own reporters get hit with rubber bullets, smashed with skateboards. The chief of police says that we are overwhelmed. They are taking concrete and smashing stuff. They are causing violence. They're looting Apple stores. And that people are saying it's mostly peaceful. We've got this under control. There's that scene at the end of Animal House where they're like, remain calm, remain calm. We have this under control. I cannot believe, it should not be this easy in politics. And that's where we are right now.
Well, I think, look, I think there's... all of Los Angeles is not burning, right?
Okay.
No, it's not. It's a big city.
It's like going into the hospital and saying, most of my body's not on fire.
No, Sean, that's bullshit. 90% of Los Angeles is fine.
Dan.
It's just my arm.
Dan. It doesn't matter. Go back to the basics.
My point, guys.
Well, you said 90% is fine, and we're both saying that really, as a matter of substance and politics, is of a piece with a death wish to be a minority party for 50 years.
Look, you and I are going to disagree on that. I mean, part of what Trump is trying to frame is the whole city is imploding. It's crime-ridden.
He's not actually. No, hold on. See, this is where, again, with all due respect, listen, they're actually playing this pitch perfect. They sent in the Marines to do what? To guard ICE agents, federal people, federal assets. They are playing this perfectly on the policy. And so for all these people who love to say Trump is doing this without evidence, point to one thing that he's doing wrong.
What is he doing? What would Barack Obama have done?
Nothing.
Guys,
no, he did do something. Barack Obama deported a bunch of people, and not just bad hombres, right? He deported a bunch of people, and you didn't see protests against that. You didn't see his ICE agents attacked and threatened. What would he have done if the ICE agents during his deportations as the deporter in chief, what would he have done? Would he have simply stood there and said, go ahead and attack our ICE agents? And I hope the Los Angeles Police Department protect them.
You guys are I'm making a point and you guys are like, let's go talk over here. I've never said that the federal support should not be there. What I said was, when Trump starts saying that all of Los Angeles is a hellhole, he is wrong.
When did he say that?
Well, first of all, I didn't say it.
Paraphrasing, Sean. Stop.
Okay, but that's my point.
Now let me finish.
But Dan, you're not paraphrasing. You're making it up.
By the way, can I just say this, Dan? You now know what it like. You have a taste of what it felt like for 7 months.
Okay. All right. Hold on 1 minute. Okay.
All right. Trump is rolling. We should get in the fetal position. Everything he says is right. Guy never exaggerates. You're right.
Oh, that's not true either.
With this.
Okay. No, I'm trying to focus on a very specific point, which is, and I never read the chat, but I do glance at it. Mark's gone full MAGA. No, I haven't. I think the use of the military should be done really selectively. I think it's an extraordinary step to take. And I think also that there's a real debate that needs to be had in this country about deporting people who pay taxes, pay for Social Security, have been in this country for years and contributed to society and are an integral part of many families and communities. I think that debate should happen in a robust way. And I think to the extent that President Trump goes overboard in deporting people who local communities don't want deported, that should be debated. They're still subject to deportation. He's not breaking the law, and he's not breaking the law by sending the Marines in. We'll see what the judges say, but there's precedent for it. And if he sends them in and they start shooting people or creating havoc by being there, I'll be amongst the first to say outrageous, and judges should step in and the Congress should step in. But that hasn't happened. All that's happened is he said, I'm fulfilling a campaign promise. We're deporting bad hombres. And if in deporting bad hombres, we come across other people here illegally, I don't care how old their kids are. I don't care if their kids are American. Let me just finish. They're going to be deported too. That's what's happened. Hold on. I'm almost done. Sorry. I'm just going to say it is not pro-MAGA to point out the hypocrisy of the media. And this is, you read the David Ignatius column, this is another instance, like with Biden's mental acuity decline, where Democrats and the media live in a blue plastic-wrapped bubble, and they are missing not just the politics of it, but the substance. You can debate all you want, and should, the use of the military, the deportation of people who have not committed other crimes besides the crime of coming here illegally. Should be full, robust debate, and the administration should be held accountable. But what's happening now is political malpractice by the Democrats, and it's bad for America, and it's not right for our law enforcement officers to let them be threatened. Sean,
everything you said is accurate in terms of the campaign and the politics of it, and that's true. But I come down more fundamentally, which is at the end of the day, whether Donald Trump mentioned any of this on the campaign trail, what he's doing right now is the right thing for the country. He is defending federal law enforcement agents from carrying out and executing the law of the country. Whether he mentioned it politically or not is almost irrelevant. He is doing the right thing by the country because the law says, the laws which were passed by elected members of the California state legislature, the Congress of the United States, what have you. And his job as the highest, the commander-in-chief, the chief executive of the country, is to enforce the law. If you don't like what he's doing, elect someone else and change the law. But his job, whether or not he brought it up or not on the campaign trail, is to enforce the law and to protect federal assets. Full stop.
Dan, one more thing on immigration, then we're going to move on.
We do need to get to Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. I get it.
Correct.
I agree with Sean on that point.
Okay. Just one more thing on immigration. Put up 110. I told you to read the David Ignatius column if you're a Democrat. If you're in the media or you're a Democrat, please read this New York Times story. This New York Times story, you read the headline, Democrats enter risky political terrain as protests grip California. And it quotes Democrats saying, Trump's horrible and maybe there's some political peril here. And it quotes Republicans saying Democrats are making a big mistake. This story acts as if it is not part of as David Ignatius said, 10-year-long apparent effort by the Democrats to lose elections based on being on the wrong side of these issues. It's an incredibly misleading story, even though it pretends to be about what we're talking about. So, all right, guys.
Can I just make one point on that? This is a pet peeve of mine. And look at the headline there. Please keep it up for a second. Stoked by President Trump as he tries to deport more immigrants. This is where the media continues to gaslight and lie us. There's a difference. We're all, if you're not a Native American, to some degree, then everyone is an immigrant. And for the New York Times and Shane Goldmacher to write that is an absolute lie.
I agree.
There is a difference between someone, that's like saying that the police in downtown New York are arresting citizens. If you're arresting someone who broke the law, that's very different than some rando walking through Times Square. And what they're trying to do is gaslight you and make you think that every person who came to this country in the last 20 years is being rounded up. That's a lie. And what Shane Goldmacher and the New York Times are doing continues to show why the media has no trust.
I agree. And what you've highlighted from the subhead is reflective of the entire piece. All right, guys, I'm going to show you two graphics, and you're going to give like 1 or 2 sentences each. Then we're going to move to your questions. So please raise your hand if you want to get in the conversation. First, Sean, and we mentioned the China trade talks reaching an apparently successful conclusion in London. And the thought was that President Trump and Premier Xi need to sign off on that deal, which could happen as early as today. This morning, the president went on Truth Social, and he said this, number 112. Our deal with China is done subject to final approval with President Xi and me. Full magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied up front by China. Likewise, we will provide China with what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities, which has always been good with me, exclamation point, don't tell Batya. We are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Always a tell when it ends a Trump tweet. I have a specific question for each of you. Dan, you first. I'll try to ask it in a non-leading manner. It seems like we went into a trade war against a country whose dominance, near monopoly on these rare earth minerals, gives them the upper hand. We can't win this war now, and we basically acknowledged it. What am I missing?
No, I think that's it. I think China flexed on us, and we begged to go talk to them. And, you know, what he didn't say about what we're giving them is technology, aerospace. I mean, he doesn't want to talk about it, but we gave up a lot, you know, to get those so that our economy doesn't take a hit. So it's a stalemate.
Sean, how could the U.S. have gone into a war when this, like, pardon the use of the word, they have a trump card that, like, there's nothing we can do. It's not like we can say, well, they're the only supplier of mangoes, so everybody's going to eat papaya. Like, we have to have this stuff. The Pentagon is 100% dependent on it for everything they do involving technology. So how could we have gone into this fight given this reality?
Well, they should know you never get into a land war in Asia. Look, this was I think this is the best outcome. But when they own all the rare earth and you get a bunch of CEOs going to the White House saying we can't make cars, we can't make technology and computers without the components that come from these rare earth minerals, we put ourselves in a bind. That being said, I think we did end up with a better deal. I still think the Chinese students is a big issue. We've talked about that. So, look, these issues are always more complicated than they seem on their face. Hopefully, this leads to a bigger meeting and larger outcomes. I will say this deal, this framework last night with China, coupled with the appeals court decision on trade and what I believe will further trade announcements later this week, this is going to be a very good week for the president when it comes to his trade agenda and what he's gotten.
All right. I want you to give an honest answer to this, Sean, not that you don't always. If Barack Obama had rattled the sabers and said, we're going to trade war with China, we're raising tariffs, we're going to win this fight. And then a few weeks later, he'd put out a statement saying, well, we made a deal with them and we're going to accept their students because we need their rare earth minerals. What would you say? What would you have said if Barack Obama did that about face? And that bowing to the Chinese?
I mean, I'd say, what else are you getting? And that's where I think the president still needs to follow through. And that's why I think that there's more to come.
Okay.
This can't be the end of the sentence.
Well, it can't be the end of the sentence, but any sentence the United States tries to say, the Chinese will say, okay, we'll go back to withholding the rare earth minerals.
Well, but keep in mind, I again, without getting too far out, they're not, this is not the only game in town, as all I'll say. And the United States isn't, it recognizes that and is working on other avenues.
Okay. Dan, what were you doing at 3 a.m. last night?
Sleeping.
Sean, what were you doing at 3 a.m.?
I just wrapped up hot yoga. I read a couple different books and then did some research.
Okay, so Sean was doing various things. Dan was asleep. Here's what Elon Musk was doing, going on the X platform and tweeting this. I regret some of my posts about President Trump last week. They went too far. Sean, what do you think of that?
I think Terry Moran had just been fired and called him and said, hey, it didn't work out too well for me after a few days. You might want to backtrack real quick. Here's some suggested language for you.
Dan?
Why did he do it?
What do you think of his tweet?
He's the beggar. He effed up. He's trying to, it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like,
Look, it's a good thing. It's smart. I'm actually very shocked that he went as far as he did.
Oh, you know what though, Sean? It's a good thing to keep his federal contracts.
Oh, no.
But
I'm
it's
with you 100%.
emasculating for the richest
100%.
man
Smart
to
move.
sit there and
I'm with you.
beg
No.
and beg.
No.
and
Okay.
beg. Yeah.
Just to be clear, it was a very smart business move. Now,
Yes.
I don't know whether he typed it himself or somebody said, I'm about to hit send, Elon. Are you good with this? But at the end of the day, I thought it was smart. I'm happy he did it. I appreciate everything that Elon's done to make X the space that it is today, what he's done with Doge, how he continues to work on Star. I mean, like, I cannot thank Elon enough for what he's done for the country and for the movement. So I'm happy that we're back in a good place. I will just say, point of personal privilege, last night was definitely the night for tweets. For those of us on the right, and I covered this on my show the other day, out of nowhere the other day, Simone Biles just went after Riley Gaines for no reason. And she must have gotten the memo as well, because she wrote last night, hold on, Mark, let me look at the time. It was, it was a little earlier in the day. She wrote, I wanted to follow up from my last tweet. I've always believed in competitive equity and inclusivity. Both are essential. The current system doesn't adequately balance these important principles, which often leads to frustration, heated exchange. And it didn't help for me to get personal with Riley, which I apologize for. So aside from, it being Taco Tuesday yesterday, it was sort of Twitter Tuesday.
Okay. Let's go to your questions now. Please raise your hand if you're on the two-way platform. You want to be in on the conversation. I'll say the two things about our first questioner. Number one, there are those who say that most wisdom in the United States resides in Wisconsin. They're correct. They're correct. And number two, if there ever is a two-way Hall of Fame, Katie Reeves will be amongst the first inductees, and a ballot will be unanimous. Katie Reeves, welcome back to Two Way. We've missed you. Happy to have you here. And I'll just say also, for those who don't know, although Katie lives in Wisconsin now, she used to live in a place called California. Katie, welcome in. What's on your mind?
Well, it's a question that occurred to me back when I lived in California. It's a two-part question. The first part is, please explain logistically and legally exactly how a sanctuary city works. I feel like we live in a place where you can't cherry pick your laws, so I never understood that. And then the follow-up question is, why have we never seen a pushback from the right in the form of, say, a red city and a blue state saying, okay, well, if this is the game we're playing, we are now a sanctuary city for open carry or whatever, pick your poison on that one.
Gentlemen, who can field that?
I'll take a shot. I mean, I think generally speaking, sanctuary city or sanctuary state, in the case of like Illinois, is we will not prosecute, ask for, or cooperate in any way with enforcing immigration laws. And Dan, do you disagree with that? I mean, I'm trying to be.
Yeah. And they'll provide benefit in some states or cities. They provided like they've gone even a step further.
Yeah.
But does the federal government have any pushback on that? Like, I don't understand how we can.
Well, that's what you're seeing right now.
Okay.
It's the federal government saying, okay, well, you're breaking federal laws. We're going to come in. The state is basically saying, we won't cooperate with ICE, though. We will allow you sanctuary here. So if you think about like sanctuary in the context of a church, back in the day, churches would say, we are a sanctuary. You can come into our church and we will prohibit law enforcement from coming in. So states and cities are now doing that and saying, we will basically shelter you, provide you benefits, et cetera, and not allow this. The feds obviously have a higher jurisdiction, can come in and say, great, well, we're coming in and enforcing federal law. So
is there a reason that we're not seeing it framed that way right now then with what Trump's doing? Because I feel like
I think we are.
I think we're trying, Katie, but I think the point, and this is why Mark talked about Brian Stelter and these other, it's because who's framing it aside from the people on the right who have independent media, platforms, shows, etc. If you go read, I mean, we just read you the New York Times. Shane Goldmarker basically is trying to frame this that Trump's coming after all immigrants. Not true.
Yeah, but like Carolyn Levitt, like why she or Trump in his tweets? I mean, I just feel like we put it in a way where it's like, listen, this is what you've tried to do for the last 15 years. And we're saying you can't do that anymore. You can't just choose not to follow our law.
Well, look, I think you're right. And that's why I have said all week and wrote that President Trump is right to provide federal support to ICE agents, because go back to when this started. When the thing started Friday night, Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass kept saying, The LAPD is not going to help ICE. The LAPD is not part of, right? They wanted to tell their voters, hey, ICE may be gathering, ICE may be getting ready to go to the Home Depot, but like, we're not.
No, hold on. Just time out. Just for clarity, the ICE facility is next to the Home Depot.
Yeah, no, I get it.
They
But
weren't going to Home Depot because they needed a shovel.
Well, but let's also be clear that it is being reported, and this makes sense, that Stephen Miller and others who are very frustrated at the pace of this, right? They fired 2 heads of immigration because they're not moving fast enough, has said, start going to places where we think there are illegal immigrants, such as Home Depot, right? So yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence where they were gathering, which is why the assemblymen, but that's their right, because illegal is illegal, right? So, but to your point, Katie, this is what Trump is saying. And I think sending a signal to other cities that when ICE shows up in New York, Boston, Chicago, whatever, we're not going to tolerate this. The federal government's going to show up. And to me, that is the right thing to do, right? I was never able to get the rest of my point out, gentlemen, earlier, and then transition to the other part the Democrats want to talk about. We'll do it later. But you're right, Katie. And look, there's a history. Go back to healthcare, right? Some Republicans were like, we're not going to enforce Obamacare. We're not going to do this. They were the first to try to gum up the system, right? It's a little apples to oranges, but the history of states trying to resist civil rights, right? We're just not going to integrate the school, and the National Guard's going to stand down if kids are getting, blockaded.
But I feel like both those examples, they were kind of squashed pretty quickly. And this has been going on for 15 years.
Which is why I say Trump is right to do what he's doing in that regard. The bigger question ultimately is, what do you do with the 14 million? Mark referenced this, right?
Or 24 million.
Or 24 million, because there was a story in Politico yesterday about Republicans going to Trump and saying, we're a little squeamish about this when it starts to hit real people in our districts. Mm-hmm. Again, gentlemen, the point I was going to ultimately get to here. So, I mean, which is where I think Newsom has an opportunity. But you're right, Katie. It's probably
Katie. Go ahead, John.
I'm sorry. The one last thing that I just want to make sure I'm clear that I get out, because Katie, this is tangential to your point. I mean, Dan, you brought it up with previous issues as well. But at the end of the day, if we're going to tell people you can break certain laws and not others, then let's just redefine the rules here. What laws are okay to break? Because let's go through that list. And I just like to know, because it's funny when you go down the road and you go, well, no one's ever gotten stopped for speeding on this road. The officer doesn't go, you know what, you're right, I'm not going to give you a ticket. Laws are laws for a reason. We have a system of law and order in this country. If you don't like a law, you repeal it. You petition your government, whether it's your local, state, or federal. But the idea that people are now saying these people have a right to be here, they don't.
Right, they're wrong.
If you don't like it, then let's have a debate and change the law. There's a difference between, you don't get to just do what you want because you think that the greater good is at stake. Then go petition the Congress or your state government. But this notion that somehow we just need to go, oh, well, they come in 5 years ago, they're providing a service. Oh, fine, then let's have the debate. I'm open to that. But you don't get to choose which laws you don't follow because you don't feel like they're the right ones. That's not how it works.
Katie, did you have another topic you wanted to raise?
Nope, that was pretty much it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Katie. All right. So we go from what Dan likes to call the heartland to what I like to call 2 beltway swamp creatures.
Ooh. I know who that is.
Everybody knows Larry. Larry, welcome in. But let's start. I like when Brett Baer does that. He says, "Here, Larry O'Connor from WMAL." Da, 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 da. But let's start with Mark Bednar, Republican strategist extraordinaire, who's got a deep experience in both campaigns and government. And Mark and I were texting, and Mark has a question for Dan about Democratic messaging in 2026. Mark.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Dan, so given that this is a momentous, moment of defiance and resistance for Democrats, in particular Gavin Newsom, with the underlying assumptions that everything in LA is mostly peaceful protests,
no, it's not.
Most of LA is not on fire, and illegal immigration is mostly good or always good. Going in with these assumptions, if you're in charge of a $100 million Democrat super PAC, what kind of ads are you running right now to highlight this, to capitalize on this political moment?
Oh, I wouldn't do any of the above. I mean, and I've said that. David Ignatius, everyone else is right. the only way that I think we can get back on offense on immigration is you have to try to be the pragmatic middle. So the first thing is you say it's a problem, right? We have to seal the southern border. You have to stop more people from coming in. And Trump deserves credit because it's gotten down to a negligible amount, I think we would all agree, coming in right now, right? Second is bad people need to go, right? So now it gets into what do you do with the people who are paying taxes, who are not bad hombres with criminal records, who are here. Sean said, that is a public policy debate that I think is a better place for us because I think Trump, or at least Stephen Miller, is going to try to go get them all out. If we have to pay $3 trillion, like they all need to go out. And I believe MAGA would love it, but I don't think swing voters are there. And there's willing to support that.
Within the immediacy, though, of kind of the situation, if you're running Gavin Newsom's super PAC or Gavin Newsom's congressional ally super PAC, talking about how do we use this exact moment, these riots and issues in LA, how do we use that from a politically exploitative situation? Not talking about securing the southern border, but trying to resurrect some sort of phoenix out of the literal ashes, out of burning cars. Like what's that path forward for Democrats?
Look, you don't, which is why you don't see any other 2028 are there. None of them are putting out statements saying like we support this. And what was it? 113 House Democrats voted for a resolution in support of ICE, like that we're with ICE. So no, what Newsom is arguing that that he's authoritative. I mean, this is back to the insane democracy argument that we had in 2024. So I would not. The reason I think Newsom's having a moment, and Sean hit this, is the base is rallying around him on like a meta level that you are standing up, and he's doing what Trump did when he was charged with his first set of indictments to wear it as a badge of honor, right? MAGA machine is at me because I am standing up for you. We can all debate general election, but you got to win the primary first. He was not considered a top tier candidate. Today, I think Mark or you or Sean said it, he is now in the top tier at the end of this. We'll see how it plays out more because Democrats are even kind of grudgingly saying the guy's got balls to stand up to him.
I definitely didn't say that because I think he's even less likely to run now. Mark, you all good?
I disagree.
I know you do.
Yeah, I know, Mark. I agree with you. It's insanity what we're doing on that front right now.
Yeah. Mark, thank you.
I've written about it. I have it in writing.
Mark, thank you. Grateful to you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks,
guys. So Larry will not think me a bad host when I begin introducing him this way. Larry, has any person ever in this country legally ever cleaned your home, attended to your yard, babysat for your children, or served you in a restaurant?
Well, yes. Wait, an illegal? I missed a word in there. An illegal person?
Someone here illegally. I don't want a blanket answer.
Not that I'm aware.
No one who's ever cleaned your home has been in the country illegally.
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that you're aware of. Interesting.
Well, no, because I mean,
have you ever asked?
I hire a service, and then if the service does not properly check their I-9 form, then there's nothing. But as far as I'm aware, not.
Right. Notice how the answer wasn't "I clean my own house." He's such an elitist.
Yeah,
that's true.
Larry doesn't know Windex from Shinola.
That's true.
Larry, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Did you not shave today?
That is correct. Thanks for
you look
a fine compliment on my lens. I have a good camera, don't I?
Yeah, you look manly.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Just real quick,
I came on to talk about Broadway musicals. So.
Well, real quick before you get on to what you want to talk about, I love your Insta review of the Tonys, and if you shared my disappointment that the Hamilton medley was kind of blah.
The problem with the Hamilton medley is they wanted to give a little bit of a moment to everyone, so each song was about 8 bars. It was but that was actually kind of the high point, frankly, because it's not a great year on Broadway. Sean, just put up with it. Let the grown-ups talk about art for a minute. There's more to life, and it was a pretty good production, though, I gotta say, but I'm less than enthused about the current sampling on Broadway.
Yeah, although as you know, it's a banner year in terms of revenue.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, you keep jacking up the prices, and that's going to happen.
Okay. Welcome in, Larry. What can we do for you?
I just wanted to let you know, because I am the MAGA voice of musical theater. I think that's actually going to be my new brand. It might
I think that's the only person. You're the only one. You're what they call one of one.
It's all right, Larry. I'm with you.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Dan. Well, there's a ringing endorsement. All right, thanks. I'm kidding. No, I joke. We could do it together.
You read the chat, they think I am MAGA.
Les Miserables is actually the greatest show ever written, and the opening night at the Kennedy Center is going to be a phenomenal moment. It is the place to be tonight. Dan, I am not
I
going.
wish you had told me that. I should have not turned the ticket down, is what you're saying.
I had to turn it down too. I was already committed to the baseball game. And this is a practical question though, because do you want to get dressed up in a tuxedo to go to the red carpet opening of Les Mis at Kennedy Center, or do you want to like dress like a normal person and go watch congressional baseball players?
What's the temperature and the humidity in DC tonight?
Ooh, by the way, no one told me that it was black tie. They just said, "Here's the timing."
Yeah, it's fun to get dressed up in black tie. I think that's fun.
This is pure practice. I can see Les Mis next week. It's running 5 weeks. I can go and I can dress like a normal person. It's supposed to be. Ooh, it's going to be 80 degrees on Thursday.
Larry, you know they built the city on a swamp, right?
Yeah,
I've been.
That would mean you probably wouldn't sweat through the rental.
Yeah. No, what do you rental? I own my own tuxedo. I'm not a visit.
Okay, I'm sure you do.
Do you own whitetails, Larry?
No, I do not own whitetails. I do have to rent those when I have a whitetail event, but not tonight. Dan, real fast, because I didn't want to talk politics, but for those of us who think that Gavin Newsom is like leapt to the front of the pack, it's wishful thinking. We want him to be your guy. We want this agenda, the California agenda, and it's only 7 blocks that are burning, yet we're going to go ahead and put a curfew in and make it all about Trump and call Trump an authoritarian. That Trump is an authoritarian thing has been working so well for the last 10 years, and we just want you to keep it up. So
I agree I got cut off. The chat was all fired up to let me speak earlier, but I had points that I wanted to make that I never could get past.
And you're a co-host of this show. Do not let Sean strong-arm you.
Okay,
that might be the next T-shirt.
Dan, there's 30 hands up and 9 minutes left to go. You take as much time as you want to say anything you felt you didn't get to say before.
No. Let's not go back to it. We can bring other people. It's fine.
Okay. You sure? Because I don't want the episode to end with me getting 90 texts from people saying you don't let Dan talk enough.
I think people just said that. Yeah. Anyway. Yes.
Okay. Larry, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining. How was your show? How was your show this morning?
Very strong. I think
very strong. I've been hearing people are saying that.
People are. Well, you know what? We had the chief of police of the Capitol Police, Stephen Sund, who was there on January 6th because of what Nancy Pelosi said yesterday.
Don't get Dan going.
No, I know. And he's a great interview. I suggest you.
He was so calm.
Larry, there are 2 rules. We don't mention fight game, and we don't end an appearance by lofting up something laudatory about January 6th. It's just not the way we play.
Not laudatory, just the truth. That's all.
Okay. Larry, thank you. Great to see you. So now we've had Larry and Mark from inside the Beltway. Let's go back outside the Beltway. Susan, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind.
Hi, I'm from Washington State. I had kind of a 2-part question.
Yes, ma'am.
In watching this, when I talk with my liberal friends or on liberal medias, the go-to is always political violence is on both sides. There was January 6th. And I'm wondering if I am missing the political violence on the right. I see it on the left. I see a lot of it. I'm sure there is some. And so that's an honest question. Is it really, truly equal on both sides? And my other question is, and living in a blue state, we talk about these 80-20 issues, and I'm not sure why these people keep getting elected in these blue states that go against these 80-20 issues. I don't get that. So.
Well, I'll give a short answer to your second question, then turn you over to Sean and then Dan. I attribute to the failure of the Republican Party to offer a compelling message on education, economic development, crime. I mean, it's the political malpractice of the Democrats in failed policies that have ruined these cities for decades is only beaten by the political incompetence of the Republicans to actually take advantage of it and win elections. Sean.
I don't entirely agree with that. I think, you've seen some degree of success in New York City when Mayor Bloomberg rented the Republican Party. We have had glimmers of hope here and there. It's tough to get somebody to run because at the end of the day, if you want to overcome a machine, LA, New York, Miami, whatever, you're going to have to get a ton of money. So you need a self-funder. You need someone who then understands that they have to be more centrist, which is going to be harder then to get through the primary. But to answer your question, because when you have 80-20, think about who the 20 are. Those 20 are your primary voters on the left. So that first threshold that you need to get through to get to the general election are those 20% who are hardcore leftist, and that it goes both ways. So if you're in a right-leaning district, you have to pass through the threshold on that side. And so you have to cater to them. And then by the time you get to, so if you think about LA, you have this progressive fight to become mayor. It's over. And then the choice for Democrats is, do you stick with that person or no one, or the Republican? LA, I think we gave them a decent run last time. So I don't think we've been devoid of people, but it's a hard sell to tell somebody on the Republican side, hey, run for mayor of LA. You'll be funded. Because it generally takes a self-funder to pull something like that out.
I think some of it is voters rank their priorities. And for some voters, immigration is a big issue, right? They may probably vote for R, but they may say, here are 5 other issues that people care about. It's just like assuming that just because, if a woman's pro-choice or a man, why is that not their determinative factor? And the economy or, cultural values or whatever. So I think voters make their decisions for various reasons. I also think that this issue is not black and white. I think it is 80-20 on the border. I think it's 70-30 on the bad hombres, probably 80-20. And then it gets much more dicey when you get into kind of what do we do with everyone else? On your other point, I think where the Democratic Party has a problem in terms of violence, and Democrats don't like to hear this, is we have excused it in the name of a greater good that we define as something good, social, justice, right? Or damaging Teslas because Elon's an a-hole, right? Just paraphrasing. And he's doing terrible things to the federal government. So we have excused pushback and violence because we think it's like standing up. John Lewis's famous phrase, good trouble. But it's not okay. And it's one of the reasons that we've suffered defeats in our brand is where it is. January 6th was January 6th. I'll leave it at that, right? So, but there have been less instances of Republicans doing stuff like that on, kind of various issues.
Susan, thank you. Very grateful to you. Please come back regularly.
Thank you.
Can't get much further from Beltway than Washington State. So happy to have you. Sean, what do you have this evening?
Tonight, pleased to announce the former Speaker of the House, the Honorable Newton Leroy Gingrich, will join the show. As you know, he never ceases to come through with very bold predictions, understanding, analysis. So Gingrich tonight on the latest of what we're talking about on so many fronts.
Okay, real quick. Meghan McCain, 1 Eastern time. Is that right? It says 1 Eastern, not noon. 1 Eastern time with guest Mo Kelly today on Citizen McCain special time. Okay, that's what I thought. 1 Eastern time. Tune in for Meghan. I'll be on Two-Way tonight with all the latest on what's happening in Los Angeles and elsewhere. So join me for that. And at 7 o'clock Eastern time, our friend Bridget Fedesi will be on with the latest episode of Real America. Here's a preview.
A lot of us were triggered last week when Mom and Dad broke up. Elon and Trump, that is. And it got me thinking a lot about divorce. When my parents split up, I was 12 years old. My husband was 10 when his parents got divorced. As a kid, when your parents split up, it sucks. There's no getting around it. You just have to kind of live through it. You're at the mercy of this situation that you have no control over. What you might not realize is that divorce never ends. 3 decades later, I'm still managing the fallout of my parents' divorce. Not in an emotional way, but in a practical way. Juggling FaceTime calls, visits, and holidays among multiple sets of divorced grandparents, it gets really complicated. Are you divorced? Are you a child of divorce? How did you manage it? What do you wish you'd known? What advice would you give your younger self about coping? Or how would you navigate your divorce differently if you had to do it all over again? I want to hear from you, America, as always. We need your tips and your tricks and your wisdom. Join me, Bridget Fetisi, on my show, Real America, Wednesday, June 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern. We will be live discussing divorce and all the things that come with it and without it. You can register to join the conversation at twoway.tv/BridgetZoom, or you can simply watch the episode at Real America Fetisi on YouTube. There are links in the description below. Can't wait to see you there.
All right. So again, Megan at 1, I'll be on at 6, and then Bridget right after at 7 Eastern. Please join for all of them. And if you've not sampled Megan or Bridget's show yet and you're a fan of this program, please do. Gentlemen, have a great day. We'll see everybody then. And if you want to hear more of me, I'm switching over to Michael Smerconish on Sirius XM right now.
See you then.